on our traditional ritualistic Wednesday at EngagedLeadership.com, where we give every single week at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time and 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, free executive coaching. I mean, who could ask for anything more? With Shannon McGee. Shannon, say hi.
Hi, guys.
So there's a little Shannon McGee for you over there. And for some reason, we're having technical difficulties in the sense that this Zoom meeting wants Shannon McGee to be Michael Ian Cedar. We tried several takes to do it, but we had to launch, we had to show up, and we had to be here all at once. So welcome in, everybody. We've got a bunch of viewers in the room. Love to have you guys here. Today's topic, Shannon, is what?
Getting comfortable with giving feedback.
Getting comfortable with giving feedback. Love it. So that's a topic that is, I think, really important, because as we grow as managers and as we grow as leaders and as we grow as companies, people aren't going to do things the way that we want them to do things, will they, Shannon?
Not always, no.
Not always. Sometimes they'll do it better than us. But even in those times that they do it better, we have to sometimes give feedback, whether it's positive feedback or negative feedback. So just as a reminder, we do this every single Wednesday, like I said, for those of you who came in the room, at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time and 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. First 10 minutes is always on a topic, as Shannon said, about giving comfortable feedback. And last 10 minutes is on any questions that you might have as a growing leader, emerging leader, current leader, formal leader, you know, or just someone who wants to gain some more insight. So Shannon, I'm going to throw it to you to start, and thanks for doing this with us. Great.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Michael. It's good to be back. So as Michael said, we're talking about feedback, and specifically limiting the scope today to just getting comfortable with feedback. And when we talk about feedback, we talk about giving effective feedback. At Engaged Leadership, we define that as a message that somebody hears, that they understand, and that they choose to take action on, right? Because effective feedback means that something has to change and get better as a result. So basically, and we're going to talk about it in the context of work, but giving feedback is super relevant to all parts of your life. You can use this at home, with family, with friends, other groups that you're a part of. But just for the context of today, it's just easy to kind of use the scope of work, because that's what we do. So basically, when we talk about giving feedback, it means, as Michael kind of opened with, that something hasn't gone as well as it should have. Maybe performance hasn't been done quite to the quality expectations that you had, or deadlines were missed, or maybe there's even a behavioral issue, right? Michael's nodding like he's seen some of these. So basically, you're confronted with something that hasn't gone quite right. It could also be a development opportunity, right? Where nothing's gone wrong per se, but there's an opportunity to stretch and grow and move somebody forward with their skill set as well. So I believe we're going to start off with giving you that context, and then Michael's going to launch a poll for us.
Yeah. Do you want me to throw the poll up right now?
Let's throw the poll up.
Hey, let's throw the poll up now. So the question is, and be honest with yourself. Oh, this is strange. Somebody just logged in as us. There's a third Michael Ian Cedar. I told you we're having some technical scenarios here today, but hey, we're here. So your level of comfort, what's your initial reaction when you know you have to give someone feedback? And I'm even going to let panelists vote as well. So, you know, I laid out a few there. Pick a few. So we have got a few viewers in. That will fix itself. I'll do it later. Seriously, do I really have to tell someone this? I'm about to take someone down. This is a good teachable moment. Or, hey, the famous E, even though it's not E, all of the above. But pick. If you're the panelist, oh, there we are. We signed in again for some reason somehow. So your level of comfort. So everyone that's in the room right now, that will pick from the poll that's up. If you have to give feedback to someone, which of these items will you pick?
And there's no wrong option here, right? I mean, no one's going to see your answer. So the best answer is choosing the one that honestly resonates for you, right? Because the point of this is just to take a second and step back and become really aware of how this kind of hits you in the moment, right? When you're like, oh, that didn't go so well, I'm going to have to address that. Kind of, what's that initial feeling? So that's all we're looking for here.
Right. So the poll just went up. I thought it was launched. This is like, we're having those technical blips, but this is how, as a leader, you grow as a leader too. You sometimes you're perfect, sometimes you're not. So for those of you that have the poll up on the screen, pick one right now, or pick two right now. It says attendees are now viewing the question. So you guys have it up on your screen. So anybody, you can pick more than one. So while people vote, you can continue to go on, and I'll tell you what the final results are there.
Okay, great. So when we talk about giving feedback, and in the work we do at Engaged Leadership, a lot of one-on-one coaching work with leaders and a lot of classroom training with leaders. And the differentiator that we see that sets great leaders apart from everyone else in our coaching work is this is one of those huge differentiators, right? And that a lot of would-be great leaders who might be wonderful in many ways get kind of weeded out from the superstar leaders because of their inability to give great feedback, right? A leader's job is to make things better. And feedback is your most powerful tool in doing this. This is definitely a power tool in a leader's toolbox, absolutely. So great leaders just see this differently. And what do I mean by that? A lot of times we see, and this is one of the reasons we asked you those initial questions, is a lot of leaders see feedback as a negative, quite frankly, as something like, oh, now I've got to pass judgment on this person, or who am I, or do I really have to do this? I've got work to do, I don't have time. And when we are confronted with the fact that we need to give feedback, sometimes it can produce a lot of anxiety. It's a very common reaction to that. And then we have to ask ourselves, if this is the mindset that we're going into a feedback conversation with, how are we going to show up in that meeting? If we think this is a negative, that's certainly going to come across in the words that we choose, in the tone that we set for the meeting, and just the frustration level that we might bring into it as well. So this is what I mean about how great leaders just see things differently. They don't view feedback as a negative. They view feedback as no big deal, right? Feedback's no big deal. This is just how we do work, guys. We're going to talk about what's working. We're going to talk about what's not working so well. We're going to talk about how we move forward, right? And because that's the mindset that they go into these conversations with, they're not triggering defenses, right? When people feel threatened, their natural reaction is to protect themselves. I'm sure you've been conversations, Michael's nodding, where,
Yep.
Somebody feels attacked and then you get nothing but the defenses, right? They shut down. People are open to owning their errors and mistakes that they feel like they're being threatened or attacked. So great leaders know how to have these conversations in a way that keep people open and willing to have a two-way dialogue that goes somewhere.
So it's interesting, Shannon, because the question, just out of curiosity, and you can put in the chat box, is the poll up on your screen? Because it says it is. But it's interesting that today is about giving feedback, and we're not getting the feedback from the poll today. So no one's actually voted, even though we've got 10 different people in the room, and I would love to hear people's voting options here. You voted in the poll. That's so strange. It's not showing up on my end. We are seriously having some technical boo-boos over here.
I know. I don't see that either.
Kimberly says she voted too. So I'm going to end the poll and see if it actually gives me some kinds of results over here. Well,
what? and I'd love to see the result, but honestly, it's more of a self-awareness thing for the people watching. So it's like, just notice in your body when you feel like you have to give feedback, like what's your initial thought? What's your initial reaction? If it's one of dread, like, do I have to do this? Like, be aware of that, because you're taking that into this with you. Or do I really have to do this? Like, really, we're going to have to talk about this now? Yeah. Like, that sarcasm and frustration is going to bleed through. So it's more of a self-reflective tool anyway. So let me push on, if that's okay, Michael.
No, I want you to, because I want to hear your resolve on it, on how you handle it. Mm-hmm.
So at Engaged Leadership, our big mantra about feedback as a mindset is make it no big deal, right? And when the leader comes in with this is no big deal. This is a very comfortable conversation that permeates the conversation and sets others at ease. People are more likely to participate. So we actually have a 4-hour session on this that we do with leaders all the time. It's one of our most requested courses, to be honest. So I brought 4 tips kind of out of a section of that to share today. So the first tip for keeping feedback no big deal is wins and misses. So number one, you want to balance wins and misses. It's very natural for us to kind of scan the horizon, scan the environment, notice what's not missing, and go right there, right? And if we're always only commenting on the things that aren't working, you know, what kind of impact does that have on other people? And this is one of those things, most of the time, guys, things are going right? 80, 90% of the time, things are working the way that they should. Make sure to acknowledge those so that you're keeping your feedback balanced. People need to know when they're doing well, and they need to know when they're not doing as well. So we need to keep those balanced for sure. Yeah. Number two, catch it early and give it often is number two. So it's a lot easier to have a lot of little feedback conversations throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of the week, throughout the month. It's a lot easier to have those conversations and keep things on track. Then if you have to get something back on track, it hasn't gone that far. It's not a lot of rework. It's not a lot of effort. It's not a lot of energy that has to be refocused. When we wait and we save feedback up for way down the road, it doesn't always go so well. People don't like that. They don't respond so well to that. It's especially if you wait till a performance review time or salary decision or promotion decisions, and that feedback comes out at that point as a justification for why those things aren't happening. That really kind of sets up people for not being able to make the corrections and get better. We use the analogy here of like a golf course. You know, you can putt balls in all day long from 2 feet away, but trying to get a hole in one off the tee, you know, from that kind of distance when there's all those things between you and the event is it's a lot harder shot to make.
And what kind of reaction would a manager expect if they do that long shot putt where they save it all for the performance review, like you said?
Yeah, well, people get very defensive. So this is what we're talking about, keeping defenses down, because it's, why didn't you tell me when I could have fixed this, right? It's, well, things have been different since, and you're not noticing any of that. You're not acknowledging any of that. So people tend to get their stick in the mud, and the emotions start to come out at this point. So 2 was catch it early, give it often. Number 3 is assume good intent. And this is one of those things, it's just, most people do not wake up in the morning with the intent to be, I'm going to go in and just kind of put out some really mediocre work today. You know, like that's my goal. Most people don't wake up and want to sabotage things or do a horrible job for you. So it's this notion of, regardless of what's happened, assuming good intent behind it. You know, they came in, they took on this part of the work when nobody else would. That's got to count for something, right? They were trying here. Maybe they had competing priorities and somebody else gave them an assignment at the last minute that I'm not aware of. So they had to make some choices here. And that's why a deadline was missed. I'm not saying make, you know, just to kind of brush things under the carpet, but that initial reaction you have of, really? Are we seriously going to have to talk about this? How could this happen? What an idiot. She's so lazy. All of these reactions, take a step back and just find the good intent, right? Assume that they had a good intent and take it from there. You will find that your tone is much different in the conversation when you allow for those possibilities, for sure. This is the good old-fashioned benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's number 3, assume good intent. And then number 4 is have a partnership focus. You guys are in this together. When other people are successful, you're successful as a leader. This is being somebody's safety net, setting somebody up for success, showing them ahead of time, hey, here are where the landmines are buried. How are we going to maneuver through that together, right? We're in this together. This is we language versus you, and the finger pointing. This is, I'm your champion, and I'm going to make sure that you're successful. So those are our 4 big tips, and we obviously talk much more about it in the 4-hour session. But wins and misses, keep your feedback balanced, catch it early and give it often. assume good intent as your mindset for going into these conversations, and 4 is partnership focus. You guys are in this together.
Thank you, Shannon. And I want to, only because of time, because we do promise to keep this brief so everyone can get back to leading and giving feedback. If you have, what questions do you have as an audience? Now, Shannon, you have the ability to see Q&A. Thanks to everyone for bearing with us as we figure out the technology here today. It's always worked in the past. Today we're having the hiccups. But please ask questions. Do you have any questions on your, there you go. You have a question in the chat section there. If you'd like to check that out.
Let me read that. And I can't see Q&A today because of our technical issues, but I'm reading the question in the chat section. I'm pretty good. So this person says, I'm pretty good at being comfortable with giving feedback, but I find I give super, super, super specific feedback, and it makes me a bit long-winded. I can't relate to that. People tell me directly, I'm very specific, but it comes off as a negative. How do I balance giving specific feedback, but keeping it short so people don't feel restrained and still feel motivated? I love this question.
Really good question.
I would say the power of questions. So when you're giving feedback, and again, it depends on how senior and experienced this person is. You might vary it from person to person depending on, you know, how much you know about their skill set. I would say go in with the big 50,000 foot question of what's working and let them tell you what's working. Talk about around that and then go, okay, let's also look at what's not working so well. So asking the person to reflect on their own work. What didn't go so well with this? This is a great way to get people engaged in the conversation. For sure, because they're the ones doing the talking and offering the impact. It's sort of kind of a process improvement, lesson learned mindset that you're creating. And then the last question is, okay, so where do we move forward with this? And if they've missed something, the leader has an opportunity and an obligation, quite frankly, to kind of spackle that in, you know, so you can for sure add a couple more specifics, but let them come up with the bulk of the feedback in this conversation.
I think that's really good because long-winded people, like you said, you don't have a problem with that, you know, right? Me too. So I often have to find myself.
Was that too specific? My answer was it super specific?
But I do have to find myself as going, you know what, dude, stop talking, Michael. Ask them for what their thoughts are or what they think is the next steps, you know, instead of doing it myself, because generally, and that way they have better buy-in as well. Other questions, feel free to throw them in the text box in the chat as well right now if you have other questions. I do have a quick question for you as well, Shannon. At what point after giving feedback when do you determine if it's behavioral or if it's job performance, or if it's incapable of doing the job? Are they incapable of doing the job? Is it they just need more feedback, or is this a behavioral issue? How do you determine that, and at what point?
Yeah, I think of a behavioral issue as something where somebody had a choice and they chose poorly. This comes up when like somebody breaks a policy,
right.
Behaves inappropriately, behaves illegally, they lose their temper and rant off at somebody inappropriately. So those are behavioral issues. A skill issue has to do more with the work and the work not quite being on par. So I would say, you give the feedback, and if we use that method that we just talked about in answer to the previous question about having somebody kind of critique their own work, you start to see what they get and what they don't get, right? So it's also very eye-opening for the leader to see, oh, okay, we totally have a blind spot here. So let's do some development work in this area. And I think after a couple conversations with, anybody can make mistakes. I always tell leaders, don't kill people for making mistakes. But when you start making the same mistakes repeatedly, right, then we've got an issue. So to your question of when is it enough or too many, a lot of that depends on the culture of the organization and the policies of the organization. So I hesitate to answer that.
No, you need to have all the facts. It's just there needs to be that different, that period where you go, okay, person's incapable of doing the job, or person's having behavior. There's one other question. We are out of time, but I want to make sure that you can at least give the Twitter answer to the question, Shannon, and that's, how do I balance giving specific feedback but keeping it short so people don't feel restrained and still, any tips giving feedback on someone on the same level as you, another manager, co-executive, or someone? Good question.
Yes, I have a tool for this that I share in the sessions that we do, and it's called L, right, as in the letter L, C, S. L is, hey, this is what I like about this. C is, this is my concern, and S is for suggestions. And this is a great tool to use at home, with people who are friends, with people that you're peer leaders with, because it's very casual in tone. It's not like we need to sit down and have a talk, right? It doesn't have that formality wrapped around it. Somebody wants to, run an ad for something. It's like, oh, I really like the enthusiasm around this, and I love your creative ideas. My concern is if we run an ad on a holiday weekend, nobody's going to be reading I almost said paper. Oh my God, did I date myself? Nobody's going to be reading the online ad for Monster or Dice, whatever it is now. And so what ideas do you have for, how we get the most out of our money for running the ad, right? So you can use, I like this. This is my concern. And the word concern is like, it separates it from the person, right? It's not, I don't like your idea. You had a bad idea. It's, oh, I like these aspects of it. Here's my concern.
Right. So it puts you at the same level, if not even the same level, collaborative. It's a very collaborative mindset.
Very collaborative. And then you turn the question back. So you get solution building collaboratively. So
fantastic questions. And again, we do these webinars every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And this is Shannon McGee. Her name's not Ian Cedar, even though it says it, though it is a good name. Shannon
we
McGee.
Like a team, like Michael and Michael.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just, twins, and we got the same name too, But Shannon is one of the coaches at EngagedLeadership.com, and a fantastic coach at that, as she said, when she's in teaching a session or executive coaching. So what we do is regularly is executive coaching. Company CEOs, middle managers, senior management brings us in as teams, and we have a roster of executive coaches and group facilitators, depending on the set of skills that you need, who can come in to do this. This just is one of our concierge outreaches that we do. And next week, Shannon, you're also going to be doing another topic. If you remind us what it is it on?
We're talking about making the transition to leadership.
Right. And so I just put the link. If you'd like to sign up now, we've got a bunch of people in the room. Please sign up and register for that one. It's another freebie, 20 minutes, 10 minutes on the topic, 10-minute Q&A. And remember, the Q&A does not have to be necessarily about the topic we're talking about. So if you have anyone in your organization, if you have middle managers or some independent contributors who you are looking to grow, this might be a great ritual to be able to give them. So thanks so much, everyone, for being able to come. Shannon, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I just want everyone to go give some feedback today. And don't forget to give the really good feedback as well.
Great. So Shannon McGee, Michael Cedar, both from EngagedLeadership.com. You can check it out. If you have any other questions that we did not answer, please go to or write us at info@EngagedLeadership.com. Again, info@EngagedLeadership.com. And Shannon and I are going to do a dance-off now.